The legend becomes reality. Ambassador Thalia Vex stood at the Grand Archive's highest observation deck, her 4 eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded her. The ancient texts floating before her contained the same stories she'd heard since childhood, tales of the mythical humans, savage yet brilliant creatures that supposedly roamed the galaxy eons ago before vanishing without a trace. Still obsessing over fairy tales, Thalia. The familiar voice of science director Kazan broke her concentration. His crest fluttered in amusement as he approached, the bioluminescent patterns on his scaled skin pulsing with condescension. "They aren't fairy tales," Thalia replied, not bothering to hide her irritation. "The archaeological evidence, fragments of text from pre-Enlightenment civilizations, and ambiguous artifacts," Kazan interrupted. "Hardly compelling evidence for a species that supposedly possessed technology capable of warping the fabric of reality." Thalia's lower eyes narrowed while her upper pair continued studying the text. The ancient Mariax chronicles are quite specific about human capabilities, their biological adaptability, their cognitive approach to problem-solving, their supposed ability to survive environments that would kill any sensible species, their irrational persistence, their capacity for both tremendous violence and inexplicable altruism. Kazan finished. Yes, the perfect mythological foils to our logical, orderly civilization. Precisely the kind of legends one would expect a young society to create. Before Thalia could respond, her communication implant pulsed urgently against her temple. She accepted the connection, her expression shifting from annoyance to shock as the message unfolded in her mind. "What is it?" Kazan asked, his mockery forgotten as he noticed her reaction. "The Sentinel Array has detected multiple unknown vessels entering the outer system," she whispered. "Massive ships, unlike anything in our database or that of any known species in the Galactic Concord." Kazan's crest flattened against his skull, a sign of fear among the Mariax. "The Vorax? Have they finally returned after all these centuries?" Thalia shook her head, all 4 eyes wide. "No, the energy signatures don't match Vorax patterns. These are something else entirely." Within hours, the Grand Council of Mariax Prime had convened in the Celestial Chamber, its 50 members representing every major lineage and scientific discipline of their species. Holographic displays showed the approaching vessels, 7 enormous ships of angular design, moving with unnatural precision through Mariax space. High Chancellor Ravex addressed the assembled council, her ancient voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "The vessels have responded to our hailing frequencies with a simple message in standardized mathematical code. They request permission to approach and establish diplomatic contact." "It must be a trap," hissed Defense Coordinator Zulax. "No previously unknown species could have developed this level of technology without our long-range sensors detecting them. I recommend immediate mobilization of the defense fleet." Thalia studied the vessel schematics, a strange certainty building within her. "Chancellor, with your permission, I would like to respond personally to their communication." "On what grounds?" Ambassador Vex. The Chancellor asked, surprise evident in her voice. "Because," Thalia said, her heart racing, "I believe these may be humans." A ripple of disbelief swept through the council chamber. Kazan actually laughed aloud. "Preposterous. You're allowing your obsession with myths to cloud your judgment at the worst possible moment." "Look at the ship designs," Thalia insisted, enlarging the holographic display. "The angular construction, the distributed power nodes, the distinctive radiation signature from their propulsion systems. They match the descriptions in the Mariax chronicles precisely." Chancellor Ravex studied Thalia with all 4 of her eyes. "Humans are bedtime stories, Ambassador, not potential diplomatic partners." "With respect, Chancellor," Thalia replied. "What if they're not stories? What if they're history that became legend over time? The chronicles speak of humans vanishing from known space after the Vorax War. Perhaps they didn't go extinct. Perhaps they simply went elsewhere." After tense deliberation, the council granted Thalia permission to respond to the communication. Though the defense fleet was placed on high alert, a secure channel was established to the lead vessel, and the council chamber fell silent as the main display flickered to life. The image that appeared struck everyone speechless. The creature had only 2 eyes, no scales, and bare skin covered with a strange fabric. Its face lacked any proper crest, instead displaying a peculiar growth of fibrous material above its visual organs and on top of its head. It was both unsettlingly alien and disturbingly similar to how the ancient texts had depicted humans. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Alliance vessel Horizon," the creature said, its translator producing perfect Mariax language. "We come in peace and seek dialogue with your civilization." Philia stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "I am Ambassador Thalia Vex of the Mariax Concord. Your appearance is unexpected. According to our histories, your kind, if you are indeed human, has been absent from this region of space for over 8,000 cycles." The human's face contorted in what Thalia would later learn was an expression of surprise. 8,000 years. That's significant. Our records indicate we've never encountered your species before. That's impossible, Kazan interjected. The chronicles clearly state that humans fought alongside the ancient Mariax against the Vorax invasion. At the mention of Vorax, the human captain's expression changed dramatically. He spoke urgently to someone off-screen before turning back to the Mariax. "We need to meet immediately. There's much to discuss, and potentially very little time to do so." Hours later, Thalia found herself in a situation she had never imagined possible, sitting across from a living, breathing human in the Grand Council's diplomatic chamber. Captain Chen had arrived with 2 others of his kind. Science Officer Dr. Ilara Sato and Security Commander Jackson Wolf. The diversity in their appearances was striking. Different skin tones, facial features, and body structures, though all shared the same basic bictal form. "Let me understand this correctly," Chancellor Ravex said, her crest undulating with concern. "You claim that humans have never encountered the Mariax before, yet our ancient chronicles explicitly detail an alliance between our species." Dr. Sato nodded, her dark eyes intense. The temporal displacement theory would explain this discrepancy. The Vorax technology we encountered at the Procyon Rift created spatial temporal anomalies that affected several of our colony fleets. From our perspective, we've been exploring this sector for only 50 years. From our perspective, humans vanished 8,000 cycles ago after helping repel the Vorax invasion, Thalia explained. They became the stuff of legends, stories we tell about unpredictable, innovative beings who defied conventional logic yet somehow prevailed against impossible odds. Commander Wolf laughed, a sound that made several Mariax Council members flinch. "Well, that part's accurate enough. We're still definitely that. The critical issue," Captain Chen interjected, "is that if your legends are correct about our shared history with the Vorax, then we have a serious problem. We've detected anomalous energy signatures consistent with Vorax technology at multiple points throughout this sector, signatures nearly identical to those we encountered at Procyon." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "You believe the Vorax are returning," Thalia said, not a question but a statement of dawning horror. "We believe they never truly left," Dr. Sato replied grimly. "Our analysis suggests they may have been operating from dimensional pocket spaces, occasionally emerging to test defenses and gather intelligence. If they're increasing their activity now, then both our civilizations are in grave danger," Chancellor Ravex finished. Over the next few days, human and Mariax scientists worked feverishly to compare records and analyze the strange energy signatures appearing throughout the sector. Thalia found herself working closely with Captain Chen, whose approach to problem-solving both frustrated and fascinated her. "Your people analyze everything systematically, seeking consensus before acting," Chen observed as they reviewed defensive strategies in the command center. "It's thorough, but time-consuming. And your people make intuitive leaps based on insufficient data," Thalia countered, though without malice. It's efficient but prone to error. Chen smiled, a gesture Thalia was gradually becoming accustomed to. Maybe that's why our species worked well together in the past. Different approaches, complementary strengths. Their theoretical discussion became abruptly practical when emergency alarms blared throughout the Mariak's capital. On the main display, spatial ruptures were opening at the edge of the system. Massive tears in reality from which emerged nightmarish vessels of organic-mechanical hybrid construction. Vorax warships. Chen breathed, staring at the horrific sight. Exactly like the historical records from Procyon. Defense Coordinator Zilax's voice came through on all channels. All citizens to emergency shelters. Defense fleet to primary positions. This is not a drill. Thalia watched as the 7 human vessels moved with shocking speed to join the Mariak's defense fleet, massively outnumbered but somehow projecting an aura of determined confidence. Captain Chen turned to Thalia, his expression grave yet strangely exhilarated. It seems history is repeating itself, Ambassador. Let's hope the outcome is the same. The legends say humans turned the tide through unpredictable tactics and technologies the Vorax couldn't anticipate, Thalia said. Chen's lips curved into what Thalia would come to recognize as a dangerous smile. Then we'd better live up to our reputation, hadn't we? As the first wave of Vorax ships accelerated toward the combined Mariak's human fleet, Thalia realized that the bedtime stories of her youth had come alive, and the fate of her people now depended on whether those legends were true. Facing the ancient enemy, the combined Mariak's human fleet hung in space like scattered jewels against the void, vastly outnumbered by the approaching Vorax armada. From the command deck of the Mariak's flagship Eternal Vigilance, Thalia watched as Defense Coordinator Zilax methodically arranged their forces according to traditional defensive doctrine, a perfect, logical formation designed to maximize shield coverage and optimize firing solutions. Captain Chen's voice crackled through the communication link. With respect, Coordinator, this formation won't work against the Vorax. Zilax's crest flattened in irritation. Our tactical simulations indicate this is the optimal configuration for our combined forces. Your simulations are based on conventional warfare, Chen countered. The Vorax don't fight conventionally. They adapt rapidly to predictable patterns. What do you suggest instead, Captain? Chancellor Ravex asked, her ancient voice cutting through the tension. Chen's response came swiftly. Chaos. Controlled chaos. Split the fleet into asymmetric groups with seemingly random positioning. The Mariak's vessels have superior shielding. They should form mobile defensive nodes. Our human ships will operate as independent strike elements with no discernible pattern. The Mariak's commanders exchanged concerned glances. Such a strategy defied millennia of established military doctrine. That approach lacks coherence, Zilax objected. It sacrifices our greatest strength, coordination, which is exactly what the Vorax will expect and counter. Commander Wolf interjected from the human vessel Intrepid. They target patterns. They exploit predictability. Thalia stepped forward. The ancient chronicles support Captain Chen's assessment. They describe human tactics against the Vorax as water flowing around stone and lightning striking without warning. After tense deliberation, Chancellor Ravex made her decision. Implement the human strategy. All vessels, reconfigure as directed. The Vorax struck with terrifying speed, their biomechanical ships moving with unnatural coordination. Their weapons, energy tendrils that seemed to bend and twist through space itself, reached for the defenders. But instead of finding an orderly formation to systematically dismantle, they encountered a constantly shifting, seemingly random arrangement of vessels that refused to present any recognizable pattern. It's working, Thalia breathed as she watched the tactical display. The human vessels darted between Vorax formations with maneuvers that seemed suicidal, yet somehow always managed to slip through the narrowest margins of safety. The Mariak's ships, though less agile, formed defensive clusters that absorbed attacks before dispersing and reforming elsewhere. Don't celebrate yet, Chen cautioned. This is just their initial approach. The real test comes when they start adapting. As if on cue, the Vorax vessels began emitting strange pulses of energy. The tactical officer on the Eternal Vigilance reported with alarm. They're scanning our shield frequencies, attempting to synchronize their weapons. This is where coordination becomes crucial, Chen said. All Mariax vessels begin random shield modulation sequence. Don't follow any pattern, just change frequencies continuously. That will reduce shield efficiency by 30%, Zilax protested. Better reduced shields than perfectly tuned ones they can penetrate entirely, Chen replied grimly. The battle intensified as the Vorax adapted their approach, their ships beginning to merge and separate in fluid combinations that allowed them to repair damage and reconfigure their attack formations. Several Mariax vessels took heavy hits, their elegant designs now scared by Vorax energy weapons. On the main display, a massive Vorax command ship emerged from the largest spatial rift, a nightmarish construction that dwarfed everything else on the battlefield. Its surface rippled with organic-seeming movement, studded with weapons ports that began glowing with building energy. Primary weapon charging, reported a sensor officer, her voice trembling. Energy readings are off the scale. All vessels, evasive action. Zilax commanded. Dr. Sato's voice cut through the communications channel. Wait, I'm detecting something familiar in their energy signature. It's similar to the temporal displacement field we encountered at Procyon. Can we counter it? Chancellor Ravex asked. Not directly, Sato replied. But we might be able to use it against them. Captain, if we reconfigure our quantum drive generators to create a resonance cascade, we could trigger a feedback loop in their temporal field. Chen finished. It's risky as hell, but it might work. Philia watched in fascination as the humans rapidly developed a counter-strategy in real time, building on each other's ideas without needing to reach formal consensus. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and exactly what the ancient chronicles had described. We'll need to get close, dangerously close, to their command ship, Chen explained to the Mariax leaders. And we'll need cover to reach an optimal position. Zilax's crest rose in determination. The Mariax fleet will provide that cover, Captain. Tell us what you need. As the Vorax command ship's weapon reached critical charge, the human vessels Horizon and Intrepid accelerated toward it in a maneuver that seemed certain to end in their destruction. The Mariax fleet executed a perfectly coordinated series of attacks on the Vorax support vessels, drawing fire and attention away from the humans' approach. They're within the Vorax defensive perimeter, Philia reported, her 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display. Temporal readings are spiking across all frequencies. Now, Chen commanded. The human vessels activated their modified drive systems simultaneously. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself appeared to fold around the Vorax command ship. Reality distorted, colors shifting beyond normal perception as temporal energies collided and reinforced each other. The Vorax weapon discharge twisted back upon itself, caught in the temporal feedback loop. The massive command ship began to distort, parts of it seemingly existing in multiple states simultaneously. Smaller Vorax vessels caught in the effect suffered similar fates, their organic components aging centuries in seconds, while their mechanical elements reverted to primitive states. It's working. Sato's excited voice came through the comms. Their temporal manipulation capabilities are being used against them. They're becoming desynchronized from our reality. The rift from which the Vorax had emerged began to collapse, pulling the distorted vessels back into whatever dimension they had come from. The remaining Vorax ships, now cut off from their command structure, fell into disarray. Their previously perfect coordination shattered. All vessels, press the advantage, Zilax ordered, his voice filled with newfound respect for the human strategy. The combined fleet surged forward, methodically eliminating the remaining Vorax threat. When the battle finally ended, the human ships Horizon and Intrepid limped back to the Mariax defense perimeter, heavily damaged but triumphant. Emergency repair crews worked frantically to stabilize their systems as Captain Chen and his officers were transported to the Eternal Vigilance or an emergency council meeting. Chen looked exhausted but satisfied as he entered the council chamber alongside Thalia. The Mariax leaders rose in respect, a rare honor for any non-Mariax. The threat has been contained, but not eliminated, Chen reported without preamble. The Vorax will return, perhaps in years, perhaps in centuries. They exist partially outside our temporal flow, which makes them patient beyond our understanding. The difference this time, Chancellor Ravex said, is that we will be prepared. The alliance between our peoples will not be forgotten again. Science Director Kazan, who had been analyzing data from the battle, approached with his crest lowered in humility. Ambassador Vex was right all along. The legends were history, not myth. I apologize for my skepticism. Thalia acknowledged his apology with a graceful gesture before turning to Chen. The ancient chronicles describe how humans saved us before, but then vanished without explanation. Now I understand. You didn't leave by choice. The temporal displacement at the end of the ancient Vorax War must have sent your fleet thousands of years into the future. And perhaps it happened more than once, Dr. Sato suggested, studying readings from her datapad. The temporal physics involved are complex, but it's possible human forces have been scattered across time, fighting the same enemy at different points in history. Commander Wolf laughed. So we're time-traveling space knights battling the same enemy throughout history. That's actually pretty cool. It would explain the consistency of the legends across different cultures, Thalia noted, not just among the Mariax, but throughout the Galactic Concord. Many species have their own versions of human myths. Captain Chen looked thoughtful. If that's true, then perhaps our meeting wasn't coincidence but causality. Perhaps we've been caught in this cycle before, and will be again. Chancellor Ravex rose from her seat, her ancient form somehow energized by the day's events. Then we must ensure that this time, the cycle ends differently. The knowledge of our alliance must be preserved, not reduced to legend. In the days that followed, as repairs were made and plans developed for a permanent human Mariax coalition, Thalia spent much of her time with Captain Chen, comparing the ancient chronicles with human historical records. It's strange, she said as they walked through the great garden of remembrance. For my entire life, humans were stories used to teach Mariax children about the dangers of unpredictability and emotion-driven decision-making. Chen smiled. And now I understand that those weren't warnings. They were reminders of what we've lost in our pursuit of perfect logic and order. The very unpredictability that our educators cautioned against is exactly what saved us today. And your methodical approach to shield harmonics and fleet coordination is what kept our reckless human ships from being destroyed. Chen countered. Maybe that's the point. Neither approach is perfect alone. They stopped beside an ancient monument, a stylized representation of beings standing together against a common threat. For generations, Mariax scholars had debated what the enigmatic Bictal figures represented. Now, the answer was obvious. I've been authorized to establish a permanent human embassy on Mariax Prime, Chen said, breaking their contemplative silence, and to extend an invitation for Mariax representatives to visit Earth and our colonies. I would be honored to serve as the first Mariax ambassador to humanity, Thalia replied, her crest rippling with excitement. Chen's expression grew serious. The Vorax will return, Thalia. Today was a victory, but the war is far from over. Then we'll face them together, she answered without hesitation. Not as legends or myths, but as allies. As they stood before the ancient monument, a testament to a partnership once forgotten, but now renewed, Thalia realized that sometimes fairy tales weren't just stories. Sometimes they were prophecies waiting to be fulfilled. In orbit above, the human and Mariax vessels began joint training exercises, preparing for a future that would require the best of both their civilizations. The humans, with their unpredictable creativity and willingness to take risks, and the Mariacs, with their methodical planning and perfect coordination, had rediscovered what their ancestors had known millennia ago, that together they were stronger than the sum of their parts. And somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, the Vorax sensed this renewed alliance and, for the first time in eons, experienced something akin to fear.